There's a lot of pressure this season on Bilal Coulibaly, but one of the main reasons for that, Cam Whitmore. He's coming for that spot.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you're locked on to the Washington Wizards. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ben Strober. I cover all things DC sports for 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. You can check me out on my socials at Strober Sports. As always, alongside, that's Abdullah Ayyubi, the host of the DMV Sports Zone page. Be sure to check him out for the best content of sports-related stuff in the DMV. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet if they sign up at FanDuel.com. Be sure to get in with that ASAP here for football season. AB, how's it going?
Great. Monday Night Football, which is basketball. We love talking about it. A lot of narratives we have to address, and I can't wait to talk about our boy, Cam Whitmore from the DMV, or not the DMV. I think he's from outside the DMV. I don't want to make people upset because I know it's a touchy subject.
Yeah, Cam Whitmore, he's from Maryland, so he's got that. He grew up a Wizards fan. He went to games. He posted a picture with March and Gortat, so elite ball knowledge there from Cam Whitmore. It's crazy how young he is compared to you and I. Even though you and I are young guys, Abdul, we're now at the age where people in the NBA are younger than us, including Cam Whitmore. So when we were going crazy for John Wall hitting a game winner in Game 6 of the 2017 playoffs, Cam Whitmore was a year younger than us. He probably had a squeaky voice back then, which is crazy to think about. Now he has more combined 35-inch vertical leap dunks than anybody in this Wizards roster. That's a little stat that we'll get into later on. Fans expressed some concerns with Bilal after how things wrapped up in the Eurobasket. We had a poll on our Twitter page, at Locked On Wizards. Be sure to follow us there. For all of our content, you can go and chime in on some of our content we've put out there. We like to keep things engaged with all of you that are part of the DC family here. And then the Locked On Podcast Network released its top 100 NBA players list. Did any Wizards make that list? You'll find out in the third segment. Stick around for that. So Bilal Coulibaly, AB, he's under a lot of pressure because year number 3, he hasn't quite made the stride that maybe people had hoped for him offensively. He can be a good chess piece for this organization based on what he's done defensively, how proven he is at that position. But if he wants to get that contract extension from this team when he becomes eligible for a rookie extension in October 2026, I think he's going to have to establish himself more offensively. What did the Wizards do on July 6th? They went out and they traded 2 second-round picks for Cam Whitmore, somebody that only played in around 850 minutes last year for Houston and didn't see a whole bunch of time through his first 2 years in the NBA with the Houston Rockets. But, boy, when he was on the court, he was effective, and he looked like one of the better young scorers in the league.
Bro, Ben, I was a big fan of him coming out of that 2023 draft class.
A lot of us were.
We were saying that, hey, this is the guy that I want. And the fact that you can land him a couple of years later, the opportunity of him finding a home here in Washington, it's there. And for me, a lot of people bring up the fact that we brought up the recent episode with Bilal Coulibaly, Cam Whitmore scoring 30 points, garbage time against the Lakers. But at least a guy like that who, when given those minutes, took advantage of his opportunities. And that's what we're trying to find out here in Washington. Right now, Will Dawkins' timeline is what guys can contribute here right now. So eventually, when we're going to be winning, we're going to be contending, they can actually be meaningful and contribute to a championship here. And I think Cam Whitmore can be that guy. But like you mentioned, giving up 2 second-round picks, that's amazing. This is what's so great about the situation is that you didn't have to give up so much. So many NBA teams now are trading away different types of assets to acquire young pieces. Cam Whitmore could be a diamond in the rough. A lot of people aren't talking about it. And I get it. The Wizards, they're the bottom of the league. A lot of people make jokes about this. But if Cam Whitmore ends up turning heads here in DC, which I think he will, a lot of people are going to be looking back and say that was a steal for 2 second-round picks.
And one thing that's really interesting about Whitmore when you compare him to a guy like Bilal Coulibaly, the Wizards are in a rebuilding spot, and now that Jordan Poole's not on the team anymore after he was traded away just before the team traded for Whitmore, or I believe that was just before that because that happened back in June. But if you're a team that's rebuilding and you're in need of scoring, Whitmore has to be your guy. And I feel like Bilal, even though he's really effective at what he does as a defensive player, and he can provide you some offensive production as well, as we've seen through the past 2 years. But the Wizards are going to need people to score the basketball, and I think that's exactly why they went out and got a Cam Whitmore to join this team for 2 second-round picks. I know we like to rant and rave about the athleticism of Bilal Coulibaly, how high he can jump, how high AJ Johnson can jump. Dude, Cam Whitmore, he is right in there in that conversation as one of the most athletic players on this entire team. He's such a prolific dunker because of the athleticism he plays. I'm going to give you some numbers here. Think back to that 2023 NBA Draft Combine where he had a 40.5-inch vertical leap. So just crazy stuff, getting up there 3.5, almost 4 feet on the vertical leap. And last year, he played in 827 minutes in 51 games for Houston. And Whitmore had more dunks where he jumped 35 inches or higher than the entire Wizards roster combined last year. 7 of them. Bilal had 5 of those, and A.J. Johnson had 1. So those are the names I mentioned, the athletic freaks of this team. Whitmore did it 7 times in really limited action. If he actually plays an adequate amount and eventually finds himself in the starting lineup, which I think he can, if he can establish himself offensively and put in some work defensively compared to what he did in Houston, you might see that number double in 2025 if he gets the opportunity to do so. He's really the chess piece that Washington could use offensively and maybe spark the rebuild the way people have hoped, because I know we've got a lot of people that have come into our page that have found us through the Denny Avdia stuff saying you traded away a potential star player. This guy can really score and do everything. What if Whitmore becomes that kind of player? I'm not trying to say he'd have the same impact defensively as a guy like Denny would all around, but Cam Whitmore, I think offensively, you might find a guy who could become a gem for this team if the situation is indeed right for it.
Ben, I'm telling you, a lot of people sleep on the fact that this dude is an athletic freak. You brought up those stats. If he can somehow manage his offensive game, and I think a lot of people were harping on him in Houston. I think it was his effort, and defensively it wasn't there. But again, we bring up the fact that maybe if he feels like he belongs here in Washington, is given that role, and that, hey, here's the ball, go make a move, do your thing. Maybe he gives that defensive effort, and offensively, I mean, is there a possibility, Ben, where you see him averaging 20 points per game this season? Again, it's going to be difficult because of the minutes, but at some point, if Bilal Coulibaly isn't showing strides offensively, you have to plug in Cam Whitmore and put Keyshawn at the 4 and just see what we can go from there.
Yeah, I think Whitmore can plug and play really well offensively here. I got some more numbers, and I want to give a big shout out to Monumental Sports Network analyst Chase Hughes, who dug up a lot of this stuff. He's got some really great stuff you can find on monumentalsportsnetwork.com or on his Twitter. Chase Hughes DC Sports, I believe, is his handle, so be sure to check him out there for some of the best Wizards content you can find. One thing that really stood out from him, and Hughes detailed this in the article, is how good he was as a corner shooter. 35.7% clip from long range in his 2-year career, 144 threes on 403 attempts in 98 total games for Whitmore. And this is the really interesting thing that Hughes was able to dig up here, and I really actually am intrigued by this a lot, because Whitmore averaged 3 made threes per 36 minutes in his career, and that number is only bested by Jordan Poole amongst Wizards rotation players last year. So if you're plugging in a guy that can produce at that level of offensive talent in the per 36 realm, and he's just behind Jordan Poole, who was easily this team's best scorer last season, that's going to make for a really interesting dynamic to this offense. And given that he's going to have a bigger opportunity to showcase himself and what he's able to do with the basketball in his hands. And we've been saying this team needs somebody that can stretch the floor on the outside that'll make things a lot easier for Bub Carrington when he ultimately is the starting point guard for this team this upcoming season. I think you might see a good chance that Whitmore is a guy that can knock down 3 to 5 3-pointers a game if he plays enough minutes to do so. And if that's the case, Abdul, then yeah, he probably should be a guy that could average between 15 to 20 points per game if the minutes are right for him.
And that was the problem in Houston, where he was, under the lights of Kevin Durant, Amen Thompson. There were a lot of scorers on that team, but now you give him a fresh start here in Washington, where you mentioned no Jordan Poole, no Kyle Kuzma, who's going to be taking a lot of those shots. CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, those vets, they'll do what they have to do. We want to see Trey Johnson win Rookie of the Year. But after Trey Johnson and Bub Carrington still trying to carve out that point guard role, Alex Sarr, we want him to be that aggressive big. Keyshawn, he can shoot it from 3. But Cam Whitmore is that guy where if we want someone to take that last shot before the quarter ends, put it in his hands and let's see what he can do, because you brought up those stats, and those are really friendly stats. And I really think, Ben, come next year, I'm hoping, if this Bilal Coulibaly extension and his future in Washington is still up in the air, he could be the guy that says, be the insurance blanket telling Wizards fans that, hey, it is what it is. Bilal didn't work out, but I'm also from that draft class. I'm almost the same age as him, so you shouldn't worry about future because I can be that guy that can score the ball.
Exactly. And he's been a microwave scorer throughout his first 2 years of his career in Houston. And this is one of the most eye popping stats. So the per 36 at 22.3 points per game, that's pretty remarkable for Whitmore. And that really gets you excited as a Wizards fan. But this one, even more. He was fourth in the NBA in points per touch. Minimum 20 games played to be on there. But at 456 percentage, only Norman Powell, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Were better in terms of points per touch. So this is a dude that when he actually gets the basketball in his hands, he's effective and he's efficient in the way he scores the basketball. He's had no problem going into games, coming off the bench, and getting his shots up right away. A couple of the games that really will stand out for him is where he comes in, he'll only play around 21 minutes, and he'll still get up 13 to 15 shots. He's a guy that if you put him in there and you give him the opportunity to get the basketball in his hands, he's going to get his shots up. He's going to find a way to create space for himself. He's really comfortable at shooting off the dribble as well. I notice it's been a skill set of him. He can find his shot in the mid-range, much like Bub Carrington actually did in his rookie season. But I think given the added athleticism and the added ability to stretch the floor as well and utilize that to get the defense out on you a little bit and maybe find a burst to get to the rim, I think that's where Whitmore is going to find a lot of his buckets. He's going to be a guy that feasts heading to the basket if guys start to key in on him or maybe some other guys as well. If you have Keyshawn George pair alongside, if he's playing the 4 and you have Whitmore playing the 3, and guys have to worry about George stretching the floor from way beyond the arc because we know he can let it fly from 30 feet, I think that's where Whitmore comes in. Maybe he gets a step on his dude on the defense. He's going to get to the rim and ultimately allow him to either go all the way up and punish the rim or play make for somebody else. I feel like the possibilities are endless for what they want to do offensively with Whitmore.
This is my last time comparing the two, but it's kind of funny, Ben, how Bilal and Cam have polar opposites on when it comes to what we want to see from them. Bilal, we want to see the offensive bag. We know you're a really good defender. Cam, we know you have the offensive bag, but can you give us that motor? Can you give us that defensive effort? So that's just so interesting. But like you mentioned, Cam and Keyshawn, that would be a good pick and pop. Opposing defenses definitely have to look out because if Cam Whitmore, again, can shoot it from 3 and the athleticism take you to the rim, passing out to Keyshawn for 3, the spacing, this Wizards offense, this Wizards team in general is going to be a lot more fun this upcoming season.
I agree. One thing that we should definitely hit on right here, Abdul, we can pump the brakes maybe just a little bit on Cam Whitmore. You have to remember that the Houston Rockets were able to give up on him relatively easily. Not to say it was because really anything he necessarily did wrong. I know he doesn't fit the timeline they have right now. Houston is obviously in a win-now mode in the offseason they've had. Will tell you that they're going for it all. With KD now part of the mix, they're going for the NBA championship this year, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they are able to accomplish that. But they were able to part him for 2 second-round picks, which as Wizards fans, we said, hell yeah, that looks like a really good deal for us. But is there a reason that they were willing to deal him for only 2 picks in the second round? We'll have to see. Maybe there's going to be some things that linger, some things we're going to find out about Whitmore that maybe we're just not seeing from the surface level because we haven't got the chance to sit down and watch him every single day. Maybe he looks different when he's playing a lot more minutes, but we'll just have to see. I think potential-wise, this is a great move for the Wizards because trying to throw as many things to the wall and see what sticks at this point, and given how the first 2 years have gone for Bilal, haven't seen a whole lot from him offensively. He's regressed as a shooter. Maybe it just seems like that's not going to be his thing. Time's ticking. The Wizards cannot wait around forever for guys to develop. They need to find somebody to become a cornerstone piece. And I'm not saying Whitmore necessarily is going to be that, but he could become a pretty key piece on a team maybe that has a couple other stars if Trey Johnson develops into one, or maybe somebody they get in the 2026 draft becomes that type of player. That's how it is. You're not going to be always draft every single star player on your team. The blueprint has been built by plenty of other teams throughout the association. The Pacers, they traded for Tyrese Halliburton. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they traded for the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And when he was traded for from the Clippers, I don't think a lot of people knew a whole lot about him. I think he averaged 10 points per game in his rookie season, didn't play a whole lot for Los Angeles, and look at that, he becomes the MVP just 4 whatever short years later it was. Just things can change very quickly in the NBA.
As much as I love Bilal, it's always in sports the next man up mentality, and the next man up is Cam.
Absolutely. So fans have expressed a little bit of concern with Bilal following the exit for France getting upset by Georgia in the Eurobasket. I'm going to talk about the poll we put on our Twitter when we come back here on Locked On Wizards. Stick with us. The NFL season is here, And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting. Whether watching your team or just keeping an eye on the fantasy lineup, it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Try to gauge the temperature of a lot of you Wizards fans today following some of the reactions we saw on Twitter. I think a lot of people were disappointed how the Eurobasket went for Bilal and for Alex Sarr, who ended up missing the last couple of games with the calf injury. We hope to see him ready to go. Josh Robbins of The Athletic reported that shouldn't be any timetable for Sarr to miss any time, or sorry, I worded that kind of weird, but shouldn't miss any time ahead of camp, which is obviously coming up. The preseason starts in, just pretty much exactly a month from now. I think October 12th, I think is the first preseason game, if I'm not mistaken. And then the regular season starts really under 6 weeks from now. So we're getting to the nitty gritty. We are almost back at Wizards basketball. With that being said, a massive year for Bilal Coulibaly, as we've touched on in yesterday's episode. We've touched on it here as well. So the poll I put up got over 50 votes here in the past 11 hours. Level of concern regarding Bilal Coulibaly struggling in the Eurobasket. And the overwhelming majority at 44% said there was some concern from a lot of the fans in terms of Bilal struggling in the Eurobasket, and that would be because of the offensive game. Moreover, 31% of you guys said you were highly concerned with how things went with Bilal Coulibaly, with only 25%, the lowest in the vote, saying you had no concerns, no qualms whatsoever about Bilal Coulibaly. So I think a lot of Wizards fans are kind of under the same impression as us. The 44%, I'd say I fit in that category. I have some concern with the way Bilal is going to produce offensively. And I think most people who cover this team are well aware of that. We've heard from various different people that, that cover this team just as much as we do. Chase Hughes, Josh Robbins, Greg Finberg. Everyone has pretty much said the same thing, that the Wizards are going to have to see more from Bilal Coulibaly as an offensive player here in year number 3. And a big reason why is you're going to have to find a way to shoot the basketball better. I know we had a lot of people in the comments yesterday, and I totally understand the point saying, I don't feel like we should be asking Bilal to be as good of a shooter. We should just be relying more on his ability to get to the rim and finish, because that's what he does. And I agree with that to an extent, but if that's the case, if he's not a guy that can develop a jumper from the outside, then he probably shouldn't be starting long term. I feel like he's a guy that should come off the bench and serve in the role that would be best for him. He comes off the bench, plays great defense, gives you good minutes, and ultimately he can provide you some stability on offense by getting to the rim on those possessions. You shouldn't be relying on Bilal Coulibaly to morph into some kind of elite level scorer. I just don't think it's going to happen. He's always been a project player, and I think he's developed nicely into something that can be really useful long term. We're not saying Bilal Coulibaly is a bum, that he shouldn't be here at all long term. I think he absolutely should have a role in this team, even when it comes to the time where they do have a good enough roster to build around and have a playoff team. He could be a really important piece for that team. Do not get me wrong with that. Nobody should be writing off Bilal Coulibaly and saying that he needs to ride off into the sunset out of the nation's capital. I think he's going to be here for a while, and I think he's going to have a very important role when it comes down to it, AB.
No, and I agree with you, Ben. You just have to be realistic as Wizards fans. At this point right now, the Project Bilal, he's not going to be a Tracy McGrady. He's not going to be a Kevin Durant, but we see the defensive capability. If he can somehow carve that role, maybe come off the bench. We brought up the fact that he could be a potential 6-man, especially if Ken Whitmore takes his spot. At the end of the day, in today's NBA, if you can't shoot the ball, it's going to be easy for defenses to say, hey, you're faster than me, I'm just going to back off and let you shoot the 3. There's only so much you can do when you can rely on athleticism. I love John Wall, but when he in that jump shot only couldn't have gotten better, but when he got hurt, couldn't rely on his athleticism. You put up all those things together, it's just like, how can you trust a guy and give him that many minutes, and on top of that, give him an extension when he just year by year just hasn't been improving his shooting splits? To me, it just doesn't make any sense.
I 100% agree with you here, AB. And just if you think about the way Bilal has carried himself, I know he's in there working. He has been out there in the gym working on his handle, working on his jump shot. It's not like he's not taking things seriously enough. I know he is working on the things that he has to, but at the end of the day, some people can work on the jump shot all they want their whole career, and they never become an elite level shooter. I mean, how many free throws do you think Shaq practiced in his life, and he still was a brick? He had to hack a Shaq all the time. It's just one of those things. I'm not trying to compare Bilal's shot to Shaq. That's very
You
disrespectful.
heard it here, Wizards fans. Bilal is compared to Shaquille O'Neal according to Ben Sharper.
I'd like if they could be compared in terms of dominance, but that's not exactly the case. But I'm just trying to put it astutely here. Is that Bilal Coulibaly? He is out there working on these things, so he will have the opportunity to prove us wrong, to maybe ease some of these concerns, or maybe ease some of the people that are on the Cam Whitmore hype train, kind of as we are right now. Because if I had to bet money on it, I think right now I think that Cam Whitmore would eventually be the starting three on this team at some point in the season. But I think Coulibaly is going to get an ample opportunity. I think he gets at least the first quarter to half of the season to try to establish himself and continue to see what's there. I think that's just how it's going to be this year. I don't know. What about you?
Do you think? I agree. Do you think, Ben, that Bilal, like the leash got shorter when he saw that the Wizards traded for Cam Whitmore? Or do you think it's just like, hey, it's another piece. Let's see what we can do with him?
I think really the whole summer the leash has been getting shorter and shorter. They drafted Will Riley, who I don't know how much of him we'll see in his rookie season, but still another player they added to the wing. They add Cam Whitmore to the wing. Justin Champagnie is a player that will play at the same position
Corey
as well.
Kispert's still on this roster,
Corey
man.
Kispert is still on the team. There's a lot of different options, a lot of routes they can go, and there's a lot of minutes that have to go around. So, yeah, there's absolutely pressure, and I think it's the front office sending the message to him that, hey, we like you. We think you can do a lot of great things, but we need to see some more from you. And maybe that added pressure is going to be what Coulibaly needs at the NBA level to take that next step. But I'm not sure. That's why this season is going to be really interesting to me. Every single night, there's going to be something different that we can look at in terms of how the narrative will change about this team throughout the year. Is it Trey Johnson from the get-go already scoring the basketball efficiently, looking like a prolific NBA-level scorer? Is it Bub Carrington developing as a point guard, or is a change going to have to be made there? Is Alex Sarr getting more physical, more aggressive? Is he developing into the player people hope he can be? Keyshawn George, does he take the next step to be maybe be one of the best players from that 20? Every night, there's going to be something different you can look for. So I don't know. I might have to watch every game 3 separate times just to see everything I'm looking for. It's crazy, but I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm giving him 25 games, Ben. If I'm looking at Bilal, and if he doesn't get a 20-point game or a 15-point game, I'm gonna be like, all right, I'm waving up my white flag, man. Let's see what we have in Cam.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like I'd say 25 to 30 games would probably be a good estimation, maybe, of what he can get from there. And then I guess it's going to depend on how much Whitmore comes off the bench as well, how many minutes he's playing and how he looks in those minutes, because they're going to have to be fighting for it, and everyone is going to have to earn their minutes as the season goes on based on what they're able to do on the floor. So if you're Whitmore, he's not going to instantly find himself playing a boatload of minutes, I don't think. I think it's going to be more and more as it ramps up. And, based on what his metrics tell us, what he did in Houston, he's a guy that can score a lot without playing a whole lot of minutes. So if that does continue here in DC, you'll see it ramp up more and more as the season goes on, I think.
I'm excited for Cam. I think he can really make his mark here in Washington. I think he has a great opportunity to.
All right, so the NBA, Locked On NBA Podcast Network, they released their top 100 players in the NBA heading into the 2025-26 season. Did any Wizards make that list? You're going to find out right here, right now on Locked On Wizards.
Tell me, Ben, what number was Trey Johnson? That's all I need to hear.
Trey Johnson, he was number one. Trey Johnson is not on the boat. Did you know, AB, Cooper Flagg is number 80 on the list?
There's no way a rookie's on the list.
Cooper Flagg, the number 1 overall pick to the Dallas Mavericks, he's 80 on the list. What do you think about that?
We have to talk to our buddy Nick Angstead, because how the heck? Like, what are we looking at? If we're looking at Summer League, Trey Johnson was hooping out there in Summer League. 80? So you're telling me he's already better than 19 NBA players? What the fudge is that logic?
Well, if you were wondering if any Wizards made the Locked On NBA Top 100 list, I'm going to show you right here on the screen. There he is, our guy CJ McCollum, the newest Washington Wizard. He checks in at 98 on the list, so we barely got a guy in the top 100. How about that, AB?
It's funny because he hasn't even played a game as a Wizard. It's not like a Wizard that was here last year. It's a guy that just got traded a couple months ago for the year.
So I'm going to read out 100 through 91 that we have on the screen for everyone that's in the audio version of the podcast. Tumani Kamara at 100, Anfrey Simmons 99, CJ McCollum at 98, Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 97, Peyton Pritchard 96, RJ Barrett at 95, Nikola Vucevic at 94, Jacob Poeltl, I think that's how you say that, at 93, Jalen Green. Jacopoto.
I think that's how it's pronounced, but I may be wrong.
See, I'm not even really I'm not familiar with him like that. Jalen Green is at 92, and then Christian Braun is at 91. So CJ McCollum, he dropped 50 on us last year, so we get to see him.
I'm not gonna lie, Ben. I don't know who number 100. Sorry, this is off topic. I don't know who number 100 was. Kamara. I don't know.
See, it's tough to keep up with a lot of these guys around the association. So, for us, we had to take part in the voting for this top 100 list. It's really tough to make a top 100 list. But if you're watching this video, let us know if you think any other Wizards were deserving of the NBA top 100. I think I'm fine with McCollum being the only one in here right now. And given what the goals are of this Washington Wizards team, where ultimately they're trying to be a little bit more competitive this year, but ultimately still lose enough games to be a lottery-bound team, I think it's probably a good thing that maybe a guy that you're going to trade off to a contender at the deadline, hopefully, is the guy that you have in the top 100. So I guess, Middleton's not in the top 100. I think a couple of years ago he definitely would be considered a top 50 player even at one point. Back in 2020, 2021, some of the best years for Middleton. You could probably rank him up that high. But maybe after this year, maybe we'll see a guy like Keyshawn George or Trey Johnson, if he has a really good rookie season, crack the top 100.
Like Sar.
Honestly, we could spin it this way. If you're watching this video, let us know who you think will be in the top 100 next year for the Washington Wizards. Maybe if Cam Whitmore does become the starter, he'd become a top 100 level player. I don't know.
That's my top three: Trey, Cam, and Alex. Those three, I think, could potentially make the top 100 next year.
I would go Trey, George, and Cam. I think that'd be my three. I think Alex will probably be fringe if things go his way, fringe top 100. I'm just going to put it up on the screen, and, people that are watching the video version will see is 81 through 90 right here. I don't think I have any issues with that. Bradley Beal's still in the top 100 at 89.
Let us know, Wizards fans, your thoughts on that.
I guess. I don't know. Skip ahead to the juicy stuff, 1 through 10. I'm going to put it up on the screen right here. Jokic at number 1. I don't think I have any issues with that, AB.
Yeah, I still think you should have won MVP, but it is what it is.
Shea at 2, definitely. I think they got the top 3 right. I think those are the 3 best players in the world right now. So I'm going to give a lot of kudos to our colleagues at the Locked On Podcast Network. I think Jokic, SGA, and Giannis are the top 3 players in the league. Luka at number 4, I guess. I mean, Curry's still up at number 5. Anthony Edwards at 6. I would maybe consider putting Ant at 4 or 5.
Yeah,
at this
I
point.
think Ant is top 5.
Wemby already at 7. Jalen Brunson at 8, Mitchell in the top 10, and then Jason Tatum rounds out the top 10 at number 10. So some interesting things there, but I do think they got the top 3 right, which I think is the most important, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, any top 100 list is going to be a lot of arguments, but at least you get the top 3 right.
Yeah, it's tough. It is really tough to rank a lot of these guys. I mean, you get to the point where the casual NBA fan won't even know a lot of the players that are in the top 100 because it's pretty tough to follow different players around unless you're a guy that's sitting there constantly watching every single team. It's been tough to follow. I think that's the one thing I've learned since I've been fully covering the Wizards, starting with the podcast. Obviously, I've been a Wizards fan. I've been keeping up with the Wizards for plenty of years, but now that I'm locked in exactly on it, no pun intended, with all the transactions that happen around the league, you really start to learn a lot about the association. So I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to this year is just learning a lot more about some of these players around the league and how they've shaped up and gotten to where they are, and maybe find some guys that are going to become free agents at some point that Washington might want to look at. Given the fact the team will have $100 million in cap space next offseason, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and sign guys, but it's just something to think about for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a superstar coming anytime soon, Ben. Maybe 2 to 3 years potentially, but I do wonder how they're going to spend that money this next offseason.
It's going to be interesting to think about, but let us know what you think about the Locked On NBA Top 100 list with CJ McCollum being there at 98. Who do you think will be there eventually for the Wizards after this upcoming season. And let us know how you are feeling about Bilal Coulibaly. Take the temperature of you guys that didn't get to vote on our poll at Locked On Wizards on Twitter. How you're feeling about the addition of Cam Whitmore from earlier this summer and what his impact might look like for this team. So that Locked On NBA Top 100, go and check out all of the content that's related that's voted on by the NBA hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network, formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Find that full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to miss all the reactions to those lists that we got into today. So be sure to check it out. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Wizards. We thank you for making our show your first listen every single day. We are back to posting 5 times a week. I know you guys missed us posting Monday through Friday. Well, AB and I, we are back to doing so. We are getting closer and closer to Wizards basketball, DC family. Stick with us, Wizards Nation. We are out.